Good morning, boys and girls. We're going to be reading chapter 14 today, which is called Trouble on the Yellow Brick Road. Here we go. The Tin Woodman guided his new acquaintances through the Ozian forest, and they found the magnificent yellow brick road winding through the heart of the woods. Even against all the effervescent colors in the land of Oz, the bright and majestic road stood out. Alex began skipping as soon as her feet touched it. She couldn't help herself. "When in Rome," she told her brother before he could tease her. As they traveled down the most famous path in literature, the land changed drastically around them. The landscape of Oz was even more diverse than the fairy tale world. With every turn, the yellow brick road curved into a different terrain. One minute they were in a thick forest, the next a wide open field. They crossed over streams and rivers, ponds and lakes, farmland and little villages, only to end up in another forest. Mother Goose found the continuously changing land very entertaining. Even she had never been someplace so unpredictable. "This place is a hoot," she said. "It's more random than your mood swings, Lester." "Squaw!" the large bird replied, as if to say, "How dare you?" Jack and Goldilocks kept a watchful eye on everything they passed. They had never been someplace they had such little knowledge about. They wanted to be prepared at all times, but didn't have the slightest clue of what to be prepared for. Red was more interested in the Tin Woodman than the scenery. No matter how long she studied him, she couldn't figure out how he worked. She was half expecting to find an on switch sticking out of his back. "Have you always been a woodman?" she asked. "Oh, yes," he answered. "My father was a woodman before me, and his father before him." "Were you all made of tin, or is your family a variety of metals?" Red asked, but then quickly apologized. "Forgive me. I hope that wasn't insensitive. I've never met someone of your, element." "No, I'm the only one made of tin," the Tin Woodman said. "But I was a real man once." "Oh, so it's a curse," Red said. "I'm very familiar with curses. My fiance was cursed to look like a frog, or at least he was my fiance once upon a time. I'm not sure what to consider him now." "It wasn't a curse, but the result of a spell," the Tin Woodman said. "I fell in love with a beautiful Munchkin girl who agreed to marry me, but she lived with a mean old woman who didn't want to live alone, so she bribed the Wicked Witch of the East to hurt me. She cast a spell on my axe, causing it to slip out of my hand, and cut off my limbs one at a time, eventually severing my head and splitting up my body. A local tinsmith rebuilt me one appendage at a time until I was made entirely of tin." Red was very disturbed by his ghastly story. "Why on earth didn't you just get a new axe?" The Tin Woodman went quiet for a moment. "I never thought about it," he said. "Then whatever happened to the Munchkin girl you were going to marry?" Red asked. "I don't know," he said. "The body the tinsmith built me was hollow. I never had a heart to miss her with, so I forgot all about her. I suppose she still lives with the mean old woman." "Trust me, you're better off without a heart," Red said. "I speak from experience. Not having a heart means you'll never have to worry about heartbreak. And believe me, it's awful." "But living without a heart means you cannot feel at all," the Tin Woodman said. "It may spare you from grief, or loneliness, or misery, or longing, or fear, but you do not enjoy, or laugh, or excite, or love. And one who cannot love is just an object." Red scrunched her forehead. "But if you can't long for anything, how do you know you want a heart?" she asked. "And if you don't fear, then why were you so scared when the barn landed on you?" The Tin Woodman went quiet again. He didn't have an answer, but Red was making him think. Connor cleared his throat. "Excuse us, Mr. Woodman," he said, and pulled Red aside to where the Tin Woodman couldn't hear them. "Red, what are you doing? You need to shut up." "Why? This man clearly has a heart. He just doesn't realize it," she said. "Obviously," Connor said, "but he's not supposed to learn that lesson until the end of the story. If he learns that now, we're going to lose our guide." Red crossed her arms and tried to be silent. The yellow brick road took the traveling party through a few obstacles, but nothing they couldn't handle. At one point, the road disappeared into a deep ditch, but the Tin Woodman chopped down a tree, and they used it as a bridge. They also came to a stop when there was no bridge to connect them to the yellow brick road on the other side of a wild river. Lester acted as a boat and transported each of them across the water one at a time. He squawked loudly when it was the Tin Woodman's turn, as it was difficult to stay afloat with the heavy man on his back. Alex and Mother Goose weren't using magic on purpose. To the twins' knowledge, the only people in Oz capable of real magic were the witches, and they didn't want the Tin Woodman thinking they had anything to do with the wicked witches of the East or West. All in all, their journey was rather easy compared to how they'd arrived in Oz. Jack and Goldilocks started to relax little by little, but the effortlessness only worried the twins. It was too easy. I remember Oz being a lot more dangerous in the book, Connor told his sister. Me too, Alex said. I remember there were all kinds of scary plants and animals. Maybe we're missing them all. The twins nodded, but they knew they were never that lucky, and the next few miles of the yellow brick road would prove that. What was that? Goldilocks said, and stopped in her tracks. What did you see? Jack asked. It was a big shadow, she said. It ran through the trees just to my right. Red screamed. I just saw something too. There, in the trees to my left. The Tin Woodman gripped his axe with both hands, inspiring Jack and Goldilocks to retrieve their own weapons. Alex and Mother Goose shared a look. They would use magic if they had to. The shadows moved quickly from tree to tree in the forest around them, but never in the same place twice. Something, or several somethings from the looks of it, was hunting them. What are they? Connor asked. Kalidas, the Tin Woodman said, and anxiously eyed the woods. Come again? Red peeped. What are Kalidas? Unfortunately, her question was answered when a pack of 8 monstrous beasts emerged from the trees and surrounded them. They had bodies like bears and heads like tigers. Each was 9 feet tall and exposed their ferocious fangs and claws. Holy hybrid! Mother Goose yelled. The Kalidas growled at the trembling travelers. These guys don't happen to be herbivores, do they? Connor asked. They are, actually, the Tin Woodman said. Connor was shocked. Well, that's a relief. Wait, herbivores eat meat, right? The Tin Woodman asked. No, those are carnivores. Oh, the Tin Woodman said. My mistake. These are definitely carnivores. The Kalidas lunged toward them. Jack and the Tin Woodman struck 2 with their axes. Goldilocks gashed one with her sword and kicked another in the stomach. Mother Goose flicked one on the nose. Bad hybrid, she chastised. Very bad. Their defenses only angered the Kalidas, and they salivated at the mouth. Alex hit the yellow brick road with her fist, and tree roots shot out of the ground and wrapped around the monster's feet. Run! She yelled. The twins and their friends ran down the yellow brick road as fast as they could. The roots slowed the Kalidas down for only a couple seconds, and they raced after the travelers on all fours. Alex and Mother Goose stayed in the back of the fleeing group, enchanting the forest as they ran to protect their friends. Alex waved her hands, and the trees bent down, trapping the Kalidas in their branches. They were too strong to be contained for long, and the savage beasts tore through the branches like they were very tiny sticks. Mother Goose raised her hands into the air as if she were lifting something heavy and dropped them with gusto, sending a strong wave through the yellow brick road like a rug, knocking the Kalidas off their feet. Yahtzee! Mother Goose said with a fist pump. Still, it wasn't enough to scare the beasts away. They avoided the road and ran through the trees on either side of the yellow brick road and were gaining ground. The Tin Woodman, Jack, and Goldilocks slashed their paws as they clawed at the group. The forest was starting to thin out, and the yellow brick road curved into a flowery meadow ahead. The meadow was wide open. They would have no trees to shield them from the Kalidas. Alex started to panic. They were too powerful, and there were too many of them to fight off. Connor, when we get to the meadow, make sure the others keep running, she said. Get them as far away from me as possible. I'm going to stay behind. But the Kalidas will kill you, he said. No, they won't, Alex said. I'm getting overwhelmed. Connor was frightened to hear this, but he knew it might be their only chance to make it out of Oz alive. He and the others ran into the meadow, and Alex stayed at the edge of the forest. She turned to face the Kalidas. They were so close to her, she could see the whites of their eyes and the tips of their fangs. Alex closed her eyes and tried to think of the most overwhelming thoughts possible. If she could reach the point of losing herself the way she did in the witch's brew and the fairy palace, she knew she could scare the Kalidas away. Fortunately, she didn't have to. All 8 of the beasts came to an abrupt stop at the edge of the forest, inches away from her. They whimpered and ran off in the opposite direction. Alex couldn't believe it. She hadn't even done anything yet. Or had she? The others saw it too, and came to a halt in the middle of the meadow. "What happened?" Connor yelled. "I have no idea," Alex said with a laugh. "They just stopped and ran the other way." She joined her friends in the meadow, and together they watched in utter confusion as the cowardly creatures retreated into the woods. "That must have been one dirty look you gave them," Mother Goose said. "Atta girl." They all congratulated Alex with hugs and pats on the back, but she wasn't sure she deserved it. She was certain it must have been something else. The Tin Woodman was astonished. "So you and the old woman are capable of magic?" "Who are you calling old, Rusty?" Mother Goose snapped at him. "Only a few tricks the wizard taught us," Alex said with a guilty laugh. Thankfully, the Tin Woodman found it highly intriguing, not frightening. Their escape from the Kalidas must have taken a toll on them, because everyone looked exhausted. They panted and panted, but none of them could catch their breath. Lester lay on the ground and went right to sleep. "Look at all these beautiful flowers," Red said, admiring the scarlet flowers covering the meadow. "They match my dress perfectly." Red picked one and placed it in her hair. She gathered more for a small bouquet and suddenly screamed. "What is it, Red?" asked Jack. "It's a skeleton!" she screamed. "Right there, lying under the flowers!" They all went to inspect it, but paused when they felt crunches under their feet. The meadow wasn't just covered with flowers, it was also littered with skeletons. It was horrifying, but none of them had caught their breath enough to scream. In fact, the longer they stood in the meadow, the more exhausted they became. "What is this place?" Goldilocks asked breathlessly. The Tin Woodman didn't seem nearly as tired as the rest. "Oh no," he said with alarmed eyes. "It wasn't us the Kalidas were running from. It was the flowers. We've entered the field of deadly poppies." The twins heard a thump behind them, quickly followed by another. One by one, their friends dropped to the ground, fainting from the poppy's poisonous fumes. "Connor," Alex panted, "what are we going to—" She fell into the flowers before she could finish her sentence. Connor was the last one of his friends standing. He fought the anesthesia for as long as he could, but the poppies were too strong. The scent made him dizzier and more fatigued than he had ever been in his life. He was almost too tired to breathe. With no lungs in his chest, the Tin Woodman was the only one not affected, and he watched in horror as Connor slowly lost consciousness. "Get help," Connor whispered to him. Connor collapsed on the ground. His eyes fluttered shut, and he fell into a deep, possibly eternal sleep. All right, so that's the end of chapter 14. So we'll have to find out what happens to Alex, Connor, and their friends. All right, boys and girls, I will see you in the next video. Again, don't forget, you can always read along by clicking on the link in the description box. It will take you to a website where you can download every single book of the Land of Story series. So I highly suggest that you do that if you want to either follow along or if you even want to read ahead. All right, I will see you guys later. I miss you so much. I hope you are keeping busy. Don't forget, you can always go on the grant e-learning website. All you have to do is go to kusd.edu/grant. And then when you get to the grant website, you can click on the link and it will take you to our e-learning website. And there's different things for every single grade. You can even go into Google Meet chats with myself and Mrs. Dagner every day, and we can hang out and talk. All right, so I hope to see you guys soon. I love you guys so much. I hope we can see each other soon.